In today's program, we're going to talk about why disaster hurts. And this is very important. We just had Hurricane Sandy, and I've opened up my Hurricane Party program. If you've not yet a part of that, there'll be a web address across the bottom of the screen here where you can get involved. I just finished up a newsletter. I met with the local Economic Development Commission, and there's some opportunities in this area, Martinsville. We'll cover some of that as well. But I want to just give you an introduction to a very valuable part of business. And one of the advantages of moving, as you can see by the crap in the background, got lots of packing paper. So I drew up a little thing we're going to talk about today about why disasters hurt. And there really are two camps. And we'll put the hurricane aside, because a lot of folks are upset because I'm promoting a hurricane party to benefit people who are hurt by the hurricane. And I'm thinking, if Jersey Shore can raise money for a hurricane, why can't a business development consultant, somebody who does supply logistics, who understands the situations you face? Because I've been involved in Hurricane Andrew's rebuilding as working for a government contractor who supported military bases down there. I've had friends impacted by Hurricane Katrina and been involved with corporations who sent people to work down there. And look, I've worked for I lived in the Hampton Roads area, and I've worked for organizations that had to batten down the hatches for storms coming in. So if you're a little upset that I'm doing promotion around the Hurricane Sandy, I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me, because you're welcome to get off my list. Because I have some experience in this area, both as a business analyst and as somebody who has prepared technical environments, who has needed vendors to be available, and they have not been available because they didn't have their stuff together. We're going to talk about that. It's very critical. And in the whole downline, people are talking, Bloomberg Business Week is talking about a $60 billion economic loss because of this. Other publications talking about a $20 billion loss because of this. I see this as a multi-million-dollar opportunity for your organization as a commercial technical contractor. Now, we know banks are already going to benefit. Banks are waiving a lot of their fees. They're doing assessments. They're offering small loans on shorter duration, or small loans with less of the upfront paperwork for small businesses so they can get back on their feet in the area. Banks are already profiting from this. And we've looked at the government. The government profits from this because, as you can see, going into the election, the focus was from the election to Obama's response. And Obama wins the presidency because of a number of issues, but it didn't help Romney any, because the storm itself took focus away. So politicians are profiting from this. They're going to get a lot of FEMA money that's never going to make it down to the individuals who are having trouble. So what I wanted to do is shift this from a disaster to an opportunity. Napoleon Hill talks about that in every adversity, there is an equal or greater opportunity. And I think that opportunity is for the commercial technical services contractor. We're going to talk about that here in a second. The next part that I wanted to cover in my newsletter that's going out here shortly, it'll probably come out on Tuesday, is that opportunity moves. So we put the storm aside. In your community, there are little storms that happen all the time. And the skills to address a big storm are the same skills that you need to address a small storm. What is one of those storms? Well, I talk about how opportunity comes in and out of your community all the time. I see a lot of folks crying, whining, pissing, and moaning about the large company that shuts down. Now, I'm in the Martinsville area. I hear people talking about when the DuPont factory shut down, and how 10,000 people lost their jobs, and how the community hasn't been the same since. Well, you can look this up on your own here, but that was years ago. And there have been since then a large growth in performance films. There's been a large growth in distribution. There's been a large growth in call centers and data centers in this area. In fact, there are several gigaparks. So really, this one opportunity left. Okay, I understand, and that is painful for the people who lost their jobs. But as a business owner, as a professional, as the commercial electrical provider who is supporting that DuPont facility, as the chemical companies that are doing that chemical plumbing associated with getting the materials safely from point A to point B, as the plumbers and maintenance folks that are supporting their buildings, I understand that was a challenge but it isn't a deciding difference whether your company produces or doesn't produce. I hear about the furniture companies and the textile companies. You know, back in the 1960s, this area was number one in sweatshirts and sweat clothes. You know, during the jogging trend, that was very important. But the cost of labor here was not as advantageous as cost of labor in Mexico and China and other countries. And those manufacturers left the area. As I talk about, opportunity comes and goes. Okay? As a commercial technical services contractor, if you want to profit in this and any economy, despite the small storms of opportunities coming and going out of your community, or the large storms of hurricanes and disasters, you need to be able to recognize that there's this constant migration. Since the pharaohs of Egypt, this has been a world economy. And in fact, your world is defined by the scope of your understanding or the scope of your view. And if you've positioned yourself right, if you've configured and set up your organization correctly, you can get from where you are today to where you want to go without worrying, without fearing or fretting that this kind of thing happens. And in fact, I'd like to argue, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this program, but I'd like to argue that your perception of that event defines your ability to address it. Now, you can see the junk behind me. These are boxes of books. My mover said I had 415 books, which they horribly packed, but I'm doing a better job of getting them out and getting them in the cabinets. You can see way in the back there, those are the manuals and things. In my old videos, you saw those manuals. That is 2 decades of documentation of different specific problems to be solved. So if one of my clients has a problem that is in those books, I don't start from scratch. And I think that is the first lesson for you here today. That if you face an adversity, you face a change in your local market, that you face a natural disaster, is that you do not have to plan from scratch. Now, I've put together a program for those that have to plan from scratch because you didn't prepare, and that's okay. You're not taught to prepare. That's why I'm taking the time to put these programs together. But I have put together the hurricane party that we're talking about at the beginning of this program. There will be a link at the bottom of this video right about here that's going to show you how you can get for free a 2-hour training session that shows you how to respond based on my Hurricane Andrew experience, based on my tornadoes growing up. You know, the driveway at my house in Morganza, Maryland was cut in place by a tornado. My father didn't say, oh, a tornado's knocked down all these trees. He said, free firewood, trees I don't have to cut down, and why don't we put the driveway there? See, maybe it's just my environment, my upbringing, the people I've been involved with. I've known a lot of REACT folks, a lot of emergency response folks, a lot of military folks that are really prepared in advance for disaster. But what I put together for you is a 2-hour program. It's on 2 CDs, but if you go to the link below here, you can actually go get that for free. I'm giving it to you in digital form. You'll have to download it, listen to it, and use it. But the gist of the program is that you do not start from scratch. Okay? When you go in to serve a customer, do you invent the methods and technologies that you use to serve them? Let's say you're a commercial electrical contractor. Somebody calls you up and says, we've blown a fuse, we had a small fire in the warehouse, and we need you to look at it. Do you then go invent electricity, gasoline, so that you can put it in your vehicle, or diesel, so that you can drive your vehicle to the location? And then once you're at the location, you develop the mathematical formulas necessary to determine the ohms and the resistance and what happened in the situation. And then from scratch, you take copper ore and you smelt it down and you create the wires and you put all new wires into the environment. And then from scratch, you proudly look at the situation and says, look, I've solved that. No, it's your choice of materials, the use of the resources that are available. It is your expertise, that knowledge between these two things, that expertise that you use with available resources to solve the problem at hand based on a position where you are today. So if everything in your business was wiped out tomorrow, you still have that knowledge, you still have that understanding, and you can start from that position to move to the next step. So I want you to take away that lesson. Here's what else we're going to cover. We're going to cover why disaster hurts. Okay, so disaster can be an opportunity leaving your community, or disaster could be a natural disaster or an event that we know happens. Just about every October, the East Coast gets hit with something. It could be heavy rain to a hurricane. West Coast gets hit with earthquakes and different things. Middle of the country gets hit with tornadoes. I work with clients around the world, and in a lot of other countries, storms happen. We know they happen. So in this program, what we're going to cover is why disaster hurts, the effects of being prepared or unprepared, the elements of recovery. What do you need to do to get moving forward? What do you need to do to get the results quickly in your organization so you can get back to profits? What happens with this gap of opportunity now because the storm has disrupted your customers? Your responsibility to those customers and your stakeholders, but what happens to that gap in cash flow later and how to tighten that up? We're going to talk about, I'm looking at my list here, the impact and possible solutions, but how some of these solutions just really aren't real solutions. They're focusing on the wrong elements. So I just wanted to give you an introduction to this program. There's a link below here where you can get that 2-hour Getting Prepared program that I talked about. And then you can also get on the mailing list to find out how you can get the rest of this program by becoming a part of the hurricane party. If you're in the impacted area, there is no charge. I might be an opportunist, but I'm not going to profiteer off your misfortune. I want to get you back on track where you're profiting again, where you're producing results, where you're creating financial prosperity in your organization so that you can then pay my full rate. Why should I discount right now just because there's a storm and you weren't prepared? Or you were prepared and now you have the opportunity to grow. I'm going to get you back on your feet if you're in the impacted area, and you will profit and you will be a lifelong customer. And I'll show you how to do that for your own customers. So in the next part of this program, which you can get by filling out the little link below, just your email address, and I'll send you details about how you can get on the rest of this program. But by that link below, we're going to get going. In the next part of the program, I'll see you in part 2, where we're going to talk about these challenges, how to address them, and how to profit from any storm so that the disaster doesn't have to hurt. Any storm, you will profit. I'm Justin Hitt with the Center for Strategic Relations at Hitt Publishing Direct, saying, yes, you can create and keep profitable customers and turn every business relationship into profits, guaranteed.